Our speaker today is Adam Lewinberg. He is the president and CEO of Postal Advocate, the only mail audit and recovery firm in the U.S. and Canada. We manage a portfolio of 182,000 pieces of mailing equipment and over 77,000 online postage users for the largest U.S. companies. Adam speaks and teaches nationally on mail savings and industry trends. He is a former industry co-chair of the Boston Postal Customer Council and Mail Systems Management Association. He's CMDSS and MDC certified. He's a featured writer for Mailing Systems Technology magazine. Adam worked for one of the largest mailing vendors for over 17 years. He was the director of national sales for Presort, tabletop inserters, addressing hardware, software, and green offerings. And he was one of the top 5 account managers nationally, working with some of the nation's largest accounts. Over to you, Adam.
Kayla, today we get to talk about a rate increase that's happening next week. This is the 6th time in 3 years we've been having these talks because rate increases are coming fast and frequent for us. So what we're going to cover today is what rates are changing, how this impacts you, what do you need to do to make sure that you're compliant, and then savings tips throughout this presentation as well as USPS thoughts. So these rates go into effect Sunday, January 14th, 2024. And we're going to cover the most common rate structures. If you want details on classes that we didn't cover, you can go to the Postal Explorer website, and that will give you the details that you need. So what we were saying is this is the 6th rate increase in 3 years. And if you look at this, it's kind of monumental. In retail, letters have gone up 30%, metered letters 32%, flats 49%. Automation letters, if you're using a pre-sort service or automating your mail, 33%, auto flats, 64%, and then your marketing mail, 30%, and marketing mail flats, 40%. These are the largest increases that we've seen probably in the history of the Postal Service. If you look at the previous 10 years prior to these rate increases, we were seeing, 10, 15% increases in these categories. And that's over a 10-year period. In 3 years, we're 30 to 60%. And the reasons for this is letter volumes are dropping. And in order to make up for these volume declines, they're increasing rates. But at the same time, the post office has more places they have to show up. There are more addresses in the United States than there were before. So there's fewer pieces per stop. And then there have been some major corrections with recessions and COVID. And after those major corrections, infrequently do volumes go back up. It usually becomes the new norm. So the post office is basically trying to adapt to our changing mail volumes. And with that, I think these are the new normal as far as the types of rate increases we can expect. So what's changing? So the first is first class mail single piece. So a letter is going from 68 cents to 73 cents. A 7% increase on letters. Your flats are going from $1.39 to $1.50 for the 1 ounce. Postcards are increasing by 6%. But the biggest increase I see is the additional ounces. Your letter rate for the additional ounce, if you do a 2 ounce piece, that additional ounce used to be 24 cents. That's going to 28 cents. That's a 17% increase. Flats are going from 24 to 27 cents, a 13% increase. So one, this is the first time we've seen in a while that the weight for the additional ounce is different from a letter versus a flat. But as you can see, as items get heavier, the actual increase is more significant. So like a 3 ounce letter, it's a 7% increase for a 1 ounce letter, but a 3 ounce letter is 11%. With flats, a 1 ounce flat is 8%, but a 13 ounce flat is 15% more. So weight is going to become constant theme we're going to talk about as we go through this presentation. Most of you on this call aren't using the retail rate for your letters. You have postage meters or online postage systems. You're getting the metered letter rate. And that rate's going from 64 cents to 69 cents, an 8% increase. Obviously the increase in weights, if you're doing a 2 or 3 ounce rate, those rates are going up more. It's important to note, though, that having meter technology, which includes postage meters or online postage systems, saves 4 cents a piece, basically a 6% savings. So it makes sense to have technology. If you're doing enough mail, you should have technology to do it. You shouldn't be paying the retail rate. Someone who spends, $10,000 a year in postage, would saves about $600 by having this type of metered technology to use this class. First class mail commercial. So this is anybody who's using a pre-sort service to pick up their mail, or they're using a third party to print and mail their statements or pieces. They're getting the commercial rates. They're sorting it down and or commingling those pieces and putting barcodes on the documents so they can get better postal rates. Those rates are going up 7 to 9%, as you can see, 8 to 9% basically for letters, flats 4 to 9%, and postcards 7 to 8%. So so there are ways to reduce costs. Your third parties that you're using, whether it's your pre-sort services or it's your outsourced mail providers, or if you have software in-house, make sure you're using seamless acceptance. The rate for seamless acceptance is increasing by 100%. This is a savings off the rates we're showing you here, 0.001 to 0.02. And if using full service IMB, you're getting an extra discount from 0.003 to 0.005, a 67% increase. So with these increases, it's more important to save wherever you can. So saving strategies. So one of the main saving strategies that we want to talk about is converting flats to letters. So if you're sending things out in 9 by 12 or 10 by 13 envelopes, like you see here in this picture, and you're doing lower page counts, typically, outsourcers or there are inserters that can do up to about 15 sheets into a 6 by 9 envelope. And the reason 6 by 9 envelopes are very popular is you're basically folding those pieces in half. You can get more pieces into that envelope. And let's compare. Let's say you're doing 7 pieces that are going into, a flat envelope because you always did it that way and it was easier. You're spending $2.04 to send that piece out. If you just folded that in half and put it into a 6 by 9.5 envelope, your cost gets cut in half to 97 cents. You're getting the letter rate versus the flat rate, and also the the weight is going to be a little bit lower. If you use a pre-sort service, the pre-sort service gets up to 3.5, or using an automation mail class, you can get up to 3.5 ounces at the 1 ounce rate. So you're not, if it's 2 ounces or 3 ounces, you're not penalized for that. So that piece would go down to 62 cents if you're using a pre-sort service. And if you're automating it yourself, it would go down to 54.5 to 62 cents. So, but the point is there's anywhere between a 52 to 73% savings opportunities by folding a flat into an envelope. Flat prices have gone up 40 to 60% over the last 3 years. It's really important that people think about what they're doing for flats. Consider paper reduction strategies also, like duplexing, print and back, smaller fonts. Instead of producing all the backup content, can you put a link on it that drives someone to a website versus printing? Those are strategies, but as we go through this, with the additional rate on the heavier weight pieces going up so much, and with flat prices going up so much, it's really important to look at saving strategies in this, and it can cut your cost by more than half. Here are all the first class mail savings options that you should consider. So use meters or online postage, saves 4 cents per piece on letters. Consider using a pre-sort service if you run 500 pieces a day or have one-time mailings over 1,000 pieces. Automate your mailings in-house to have dramatic postage savings. So if you do enough volume, you can have the software yourself to be able to get the automation rates. Pre-sort and automation levels, remember, go up to 3.5 ounces for the same rate. Flats and postcards can also get automation rates, same as letters can. And consider moving, if you have generic mailings that you're sending out first class, consider moving them to marketing mail because the rates are so much less. So as an example, a 1 ounce piece is 73 cents. If we meter it at 69 cents, we use a pre-sort service, it goes down to 62. If we automate it, 54.5 to 62. If we convert it to marketing mail, because it's just a generic document that everyone's kind of uniform in nature, and there's no personalized content on it besides maybe some name and some basic information, you can qualify for marketing mail that's 34.5 to 40.2 cents. And if you're a nonprofit, that same piece could go down to 17.3 to 23 cents. So this is sort of the gamut of all your options. drive cost savings. Marketing mail. So marketing mail is anything that it's slightly slower delivery than first class. You have to have 200 pieces or 50 pounds in a specific mailing in order to qualify. You're getting a 4% increase for letters. If you're a nonprofit, they were actually saved from this one. It's only a 0 to 1% increase. Lightweight flats are increasing 4 to 8%. Nonprofit 5 to 13%. But heavyweight flats are having a big change. Heavyweight flats are considered anything over 4 ounces is getting an 11 to 35% increase based on weight. So let's talk about what that means. With heavyweight flats, it's a 2-rate structure. You get charged per piece and then per pound. And the per piece rate is basically the same rate as you were having on the lightweight flats you can see to the left. But you get charged per pound rate, which is basically if you did an 8-ounce piece, and it's 90 cents for the pound rate, and that's half a pound, you get charged an extra 45 cents per piece on top of the per piece rate. And that's how they sort of calculate these heavier weight items. So as you look at this, as items get heavier, depending on the sort level you're doing, the price goes way up, 17 to, at the highest that we see is 25% for commercial flats. And then on the right, you can see for nonprofit, they're getting a really big increase on this, anywhere between 14% to 35%. So huge increases on these flat, like heavier weight flats. I'm sure you're hearing a common theme. It's really important to look at the weight of your pieces more so than we've ever had to. Now, with marketing mail, the best way to save money is they have something called entry discounts from the post office, which is if you can move your mail to a destination network distribution center or a destination sectional center facility. And the sectional center facility is the goal, which is basically moving mail. Like if you're in Boston and you're sending things to California, you'd want to have your mail sent to the sectional center facility that supports that area all the way across country. And if you can deposit your mail closer to the end point of it, there's huge savings. So for instance, with letters, you save 2.7 cents a piece, by moving mail to the destination sectional center facility. With items under 4 ounces, you save 7 cents a piece, and with items over 4 ounces, you save 47.6% cents per piece. So huge savings. So what's changing in these is the discounts. So the discounts on the letter size actually went down by 11 to 22%, 23%. On the flats went down 7 to 23%. So the discounts are good, but they're not as good as they were. But if you do over 4-ounce pieces, you're saving 531 to 423%. The discounts increased. And the reason they increased by that much is the post office making a clear sign that says, if you want to send heavyweight flats, we're going to charge you a lot more for the flats, as we can see here on the per pound rate, but you can offset that if you move your mail closer to its end destination. So how do people do this? So there are a couple ways. So you would either have an agreement with a transportation organization that can physically move your mail to these different sectional center facilities. There are a lot of these companies that do it. Some pre-sort services that you would use would do this for you. And if you outsource this mail to a third party who's doing the printing and mailing, most likely they either have their own transportation network or they have contracted with another company that can move your mail to these sectional center facilities. The important reason that I'm bringing this up is, however you're doing this mail, most likely it's being outsourced to somebody else. Talk to them about how they're doing this to make sure that the majority of your mail, your marketing mail, is being forwarded to these sectional center facilities, because it's too expensive. It's too much savings to be missing out on by not doing it. Also, lower rates. If you're sending things out with, at marketing mail rates, consider, can we convert those marketing mail pieces from flats to letters, just like we talked about for first class? A flat is, the 4 ounces is 45 cents to $1.04. If we can fold those in half into a 6 by 9.5, it's 17.3 to 40.2 cents, significantly lower. And the letters are getting lower rate increases than the flats are. Good news, Priority Mail Express, Ground Advantage, what the post office calls their competitive group, is getting no increases on this rate increase. And the reason for that is in January every year, they increase their rates because they tie it every year. UPS and FedEx increase their rates. So they tie their rate increases on these competitive services to what UPS and FedEx are doing. So typically on these half-year rate increases, we're not seeing rate changes in Priority Mail, Express, and Ground Advantage. But we still want to talk to you about what are savings areas in these categories. The biggest way to save money in these categories is to move from the commercial rates to the retail rates. And so let's talk about what that is. If you go to the post office and you present your Priority Mail piece or Express Mail or Ground Advantage, you get a retail rate. If you run a Priority Mail piece through your postage meter, anything over 13 ounces defaults to Priority Mail, you're getting a retail rate. Postage meters have retail rates inside of them. Even if you're using the USPS's free tools like Click and Ship, you're getting a retail rate. In order to get the commercial rate, you have to have a third-party software platform or third-party online access tool. They can get you the commercial rate. So the benefits of them are they're huge discounts over retail. You get free tracking on USPS.com. There are multiple vendors to process this. But the downside is it requires that you key enter the address. When you run a piece through your postage meter, you just run it through and it applies the postage for you, and that's all that someone does. When you use these systems, someone has to sit at a computer and they have to type in an address like you would for UPS and FedEx. So it's an extra step or two. But look at the savings. With Priority Mail, you save 13% to 30% based on sort of the weight brackets. Priority Mail Express, 13 to 15%. Ground Advantage, 16 to 32%. I mean, so huge savings that you're getting by having commercial rates versus retail. As an overall budget, I would say by using these services, you get about a 25% overall cost reduction. So someone who's spending $10,000 a year in these classes of mail saves $2,500 a year. And the software that you would need to do this starts at about $15 a month. So it's not very expensive to have a tool that can get you the commercial rates. Sometimes it's included with your postage meter contract. So you should check with your meter vendor if they've included that sort of software, that online license. Next savings tip, compare your packaging versus flat rate envelopes and boxes. So a lot of people just say, oh, we keep Priority Mail flat rate envelopes around, and that's great. But it's less but if you can see from this chart, flat rate envelopes are actually more expensive when you're sending to local zones because it's one rate that covers across the board. A local zone is, think about like zone 1 is like less than 50 miles away from where you are is where the piece is going, whereas zone 8 might be across the country from Boston to California. So as items go farther away, the flat rate envelopes are less expensive. Than the weighted rates. But if you're doing local zones, things within a couple hundred miles, you should be thinking about, just using your own packaging. Okay. Bigger discounts farther away. Post office does provide free packaging, and the free packaging is only available on Priority and Priority Mail Express. Okay. Next saving tip, convert Priority Mail to Ground Advantage. So Ground Advantage used to be first class parcel and then Ground Select, but the post office came out with this new service called Ground Advantage that sort of bundles all of those different services and puts it into a consistent offering. Basically, it's 2 to 5 day delivery throughout the country versus 1 to 3 day for Priority Mail. But most Priority Mail pieces that people are doing just in their office is anything over 13 ounces that you run through your postage meter automatically defaults to Priority Mail. First class letters are a 2 to 5 day delivery standard. So if you're sending out Priority, you're actually getting a premium delivery service. If you convert those Priority Mail pieces to Ground Advantage, you save 79% on the items less than a pound, 20% for 1 to 5 pounds, 27% for 6 to 10 pounds. So just make sure you need the priority delivery and it's just not something that's slightly heavier that has to go out. Comparing costs. The biggest way to save money on parcels is to compare your rates with UPS and FedEx. Now, most organizations will have an agreement with either UPS or FedEx. They get free carrier provided tools and they run everything through the platform, through those FedEx and UPS platforms. And most organizations are spending more on parcels through those private carriers than they are with Postal Service. And if everything's going overnight and everything needs to go overnight, makes sense. We understand why you're doing it that way. But a lot of things people just send overnight because that's what they've always done. When you look at the rate structures, there's a lot of hidden costs with UPS and FedEx, no matter what your discount is. So let's use this as an example. Someone sending out something that is 3 days and it's $18. That's the published rate, let's say. Well, with your discounts, you're probably getting a rate of more like $10. Okay, but you're still paying fuel, and fuel could be is about 14%, so that's going to push it up to 11.50. Then if it's going to a residence, you're paying $6 more, and now we're at 17. And if it's a rural zip code, which is 61% of all zip codes in the United States, they charge delivery area surcharges, and they've made those delivery area surcharges work for New York City because it's so difficult to park there. So they charge an additional $3.70 to $7.15 for those items, and address correction fees of $21. The point is that item that you thought you were getting such a great deal on at $11, once you add the fees, could be 20. That same item, sending it out priority mail, getting this probably faster delivery, is $8. And if you send it ground advantage, which is most likely to get about the same delivery, it's $4 to $6. And so it's important to say not that everything should be going to the Postal Service, but that people are comparing their packages on a package by package basis, because these calculations I just showed you are too complicated for people to figure out on the fly. And just using the carriers, the FedEx and UPS, is just going to make it more expensive. So what we recommend is prices are going up faster and faster with the growth in the shipping space. And there's only really 3 or 4 suppliers people use. They use UPS, FedEx, some people use DHL, and the post office. There's too many factors in calculating a shipping price to rely on only the free carrier provided systems to make those decisions. So people need ways to compare rates side by side to make the best decisions. More people are working from home or working in small offices. And so there's this need for cloud-based tools to support mail and shipping needs. So there are these new tools that are multi-carrier, cloud-based rate shopping tools that can compare all your rates on one screen and help you make the best decision on a package by package basis. Some of these systems can also generate postage stamps on one system, which eliminates the need for low volume meters and supports people working from home. So it makes it easier to send a 64-cent letter versus being forced to send something out as an air $15 overnight. There are enterprise versions that can support entire enterprises, and all these solutions create efficiencies and savings. Plus 20 to 30% of the postage meters are going to have to be upgraded by the end of 2024. And most of these systems are doing low volumes of mail, less than $300 a month. And these online tools, we're switching a lot of our clients to them to eliminate the need for low-end meters and have one enterprise platform that does everything in one place. So this is the future of mail, is not going to be having tons of hardware and people using free systems. It's going to be online tools that compare everything side by side in one place to drastically reduce costs. Some additional rate change areas. There's so many different classes for international. There's no way we can get into all of them. But the basic letters and postcards that people use, you're getting about a 6.5% increase across the board, as you can see. Library mail, you're getting, on the lightweight stuff like a pound, it's a 12% increase. As items get heavier, the increase goes down. And a similar rate structure for media mail. Special services. We're getting one of the largest increases in special services that we've seen in a long time. Certificate of about 10% overall. Certificate of mailings, 10% registered. Certified mails getting a 10% increase on the certified and a 12 to 13% increase on the return receipts. Sort of get double hit on that. Insurance costs, ironically, went down a little bit. Some of the tracking services, are going up, anywhere from staying flat to about 10%. The fees, a lot of the people on the call here are going to have different USPS accounts for things like business reply mail, for postage due, for marketing mail, or first class permits. The cost on those permits is going up 9.4%, 320 to 350 a year. Business reply mail is getting a lot of different increases. The QBRM basic is actually going down, which is the only bright spot in it. But other than that, you're getting, relatively high increases. So let's talk about a couple items to save money. Electronic return receipt. If you move from green card return receipts, we saw that we're getting 10 to 12% increases in the certified pieces. But if you move from a green card, which is a sort of a retail return receipt, to an electronic, you save $1.48 per piece. So the green card, basically, people use certified mail because they need proof that person physically got the piece. So they make the person at the end user sign this card to prove that they physically received it. There's electronic versions where the post office can have, the person who receives it sign their pad, and the person can generate an electronic version of that. And it actually is a significantly more efficient process because people aren't filling out these cards, as one. Two, you get a listing of all the pieces that you've had delivered. And then you have controls of all the items, whether it came in or didn't. And there are lots of automated tools that streamline this workflow. People who do a lot of certifieds typically are moving to the electronic return receipt, holds up in courts, and it's becoming more of the de facto standard. Other saving strategies. Business reply mail. I'm going to just focus on this because this is one of the most overlooked areas and clients can have a lot of savings. Business reply mail, the way it works is you have an account, you're sending out these documents, you want to get them back. So instead of making the person pay for postage, you pay the postage, but you don't want to pay the postage for every piece that you sent out. You only want to pay the postage for the items that get returned. So use this business reply service. It costs $3.50 a year for the annual permit fee. And if we use the basic account, you pay $3.50 a year, and then you spend $1.07 for every piece you get returned, plus the postage at 68 cents, making the total $1.75. Get a piece back. If you simply sign up for the high volume account or the QBRM basic, you pay the $3.50 fee, and you pay $1,000 annual account maintenance fee, but your per piece fee goes down to 13 cents or 9 cents. And the postage, either stays the same or goes slightly down with QBRM. And so the total per piece fee goes down from $1.75 to 81 cents or 75 cents. So what happens is people set up these accounts and they put them on autopilot. So someone sets up a basic account and they just let it run. And then someone starts doing a campaign and they're starting to get lots and lots of returns. So we've seen lots of clients in this situation. They're getting 100,000 returns a year, and they still have it set up at a basic account. So they're paying $175,000 a year to get these pieces back. If they just simply paid the $1,000, that cost could go down to 82,000 or 76,000, saving almost $100,000 a year. People don't look at the volumes that they're getting, especially when they have lots of locations distributed around the country. What we do for clients is help consolidate this, get visibility to all these accounts, consolidate these, and make sure that every one of these business reply accounts is set up at the right level. You can do it yourself, but it's an overlooked area that needs to be looked into if you have any business reply accounts out there. How do you budget for this increase? So we have this cost calculator that's very simple. You can download it from our website. You can email Michaela if you want a copy of it. And basically what it's designed to do is these are the percentage increases that you can expect in each mail class. You simply put in how much you spend a year estimated on these different mail classes, and it will calculate what you need to budget for this increase. As a safe bet, assuming you're just doing majority letters, you should budget at least 8 to 10% for this increase. Anything that you're doing on the parcel side, you have time to wait because there's no increase on the parcel side. But if you want this tool, feel free to contact us or go to our website and you can download this and get access to it. What do you need to do for the rate increase? So make sure that your meter makes a connection to the data center of your meter vendor prior to July 14th, 2024, which is Sunday. So if you have newer style meters, they're always on and they're constantly being pulled, and that should happen automatically. If you have some older style meters, you have to make sure that you either do a reset or like connect on the meter and have it do a balance inquiry of what you have sitting in your meter account. That forces the download to come into your device. So just make sure that if you have an older style meter that you're making that connection, or someone's checking the balance you have online, or refilling your meter for $1 or something like that, just so you can make the connection and make sure the rates get downloaded in. There are links to all the vendors' websites, so if you have any questions, they all have resources that you can use. And all the charts that we used with showing the different rate increases, you can download on our website, and we provide all those in a cheat sheet that shows you the previous to the new. And if you have any other rate change, questions that you have, you can go to the Postal Explorer website, and that will give you some of the details you might need. So one thing that I want to bring up is this USPS forced meter migration. The deadline was June 30th for this. So what's happening is, if you weren't aware of this, the post office has decertified the older style meters. So old style meters that we are just talking about, you hit refill, they connect to the data center, they download your $1,000 in, and then they disconnect. Those are called IBI meters. The post office is saying that no longer works. We want all devices to be constantly connected to the network. We want to make sure that we can pull them, that we can issue refunds, that we can see the volumes that are hitting our networks. And they're forcing everyone to get new devices. You can't retrofit an old device. You have to replace it and get a new device. And this impacts, when this originally started, it was probably 50 to 60% of the entire postage meter population in the United States. With all the things that have happened, there's probably still only about 20 to 30% of the meters that have still not been switched that need to get done. The deadline was June 30th, but the post office is saying that there's a grace period through December 31st, so you have some time to get it done. But some of the meter vendors have restrictions requiring you to make the changes sooner. And let me give you some examples of these restrictions. Some vendors are saying, well, you need to connect once a month now to the data centers. One vendor is saying as of September 29th will be the last date that you can refill your meter. And then one vendor also has a requirement that says that as of December 1st, all meters must be removed. So contact your meter vendor to see what their specific requirements are, or email us and we'll give you what that specific vendor is. We're just not here to point out the specific requirements on this type of call. We recommend you need to have an inventory of all the equipment that needs to be migrated, that's out there, to make sure you know which equipment that needs to be replaced. These meters will be inoperable at the end of the year. They will not work. You will not be able to refill them. You won't be able to get updated rate structures. They should be out of circulation. And the post office does not seem to be wavering on them. So what we do, just a quick bit about us, we help the largest companies in America or largest organizations manage their mail spends. And if you look at any organization, their mail falls into one of these categories. So whether it's the mail equipment that they have in their facilities and the postage that they use, whether it's expedited documents with UPS or FedEx, or the Postal Service that they're generating, whether it's print and production mail that is either done inside large hubs inside your organization, or there's done through third-party mail houses, whether they're USPS accounts like business reply accounts, postage due accounts, PO boxes, permits. We take all that data, we get it into an enterprise platform that we've built, and then we look for savings inside of it. And the problem with the mail category that you find in most organizations is it's very fragmented. Someone in marketing works with an outsourced provider. Someone who does billing, might have a different provider that they're using. Some stuff goes through a main mailroom hubs. Then there are field offices scattered throughout the country. There are people who work from home. And most organizations, in fact, we almost never find an organization that has a consolidated view to all of these. And without a consolidated view to it, you can't develop saving strategies around driving maximum cost efficiencies. So when we pull it together and we can look at the details of what's happening at every location and in every account and with every vendor, we can drive savings that are very significant. And oftentimes, 50% plus in many of the categories. But it's important, we feel, especially with the increases in costs that are happening, to have that consolidated view and to have controls in place to manage the spend that's grown at basically 30+% over the last 3 years, far exceeding inflation. Our clients are some of the largest companies in all industries. It's really people work with us who have disparate mailing spends across different locations or areas. I'd say our biggest verticals are financial services, being insurance, banking, investments, and healthcare. Those are our biggest verticals, but we have clients in every industry. It's really just people that have, disparate mailing spends. We've helped our clients save over $85 million. Average client has saved 56%. And we're driving the costs. And we've also recovered over $23 million in lost postage, vendor overcharges, and fees. People are not looking at the details of every invoice and transaction to see if there's any, waste or leakage. Any client will do a no that has at least, has these types of spends, we will do a no cost or obligation mail assessment. And what that would be is we'd create an inventory of all your mail equipment throughout the US. We'd be able to build out what your contract terms, cost of postage, vendor fees. We'd provide visibility to your USPS accounts, your permits, PO boxes, business reply accounts, any outsourced print and mail services that you're using, pre-sort services and production mail spends, we can provide visibility to that. And then we'll develop a mail optimization plan that includes the following: a right-sized mail equipment plan that can reduce costs typically by over 50%, details on how enterprise online postage platforms eliminate the need for meters, provide access, and allow you to rate shop in a much more efficient way with UPS and FedEx, USPS and third-party mail savings analysis, and a process plan that details how we would manage the transition and ongoing oversight. We can typically turn these around in less than 30 days. And we try to make these analyses very simple for the client. So we ask for a letter of authority that just says that we can view your mailing expenses. We'll ask for some specific mailing reports if they're available. We'll ask for an accounts payable report for the last 12 months for the main mailing vendor names. And the main mailing vendors are really Pitney Bowes, Quadient, fpstamps.com, and then any other USPS and any known outsourcers you might be using. We'll request a small sample of invoice copies and then meet with us to review the results, and we can pull this together. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. There's a lot of changes that are happening in the post office. We do probably 5 to 8 different webinars a year on different educational topics. So please, we hope you can attend some of those, and if nothing else, to become educated on the changes that are happening. But I'm going to open it up for questions. But before I do, I just want to thank everyone for coming and hope that this information was helpful. So Michaela, any questions?
Yeah, so thanks, Adam, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. While we wait for some questions to roll in, I did want to remind you guys there are 2 different ways to ask questions. You can either type your question in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll mute you to ask your question. So while we wait for some questions, I did just want to point out the social links there. Like Adam said, we have about 5 to 8 webinars a year, but we obviously post on our social media pages a lot more frequently with different mailing information. And then Adam's email is also listed there in case you have any questions for him about anything he talked about today. So it looks like our first question is, do you expect any more rate increases this year?
So this will be our second for this year. Post office last year, there's a new sort of thing that's becoming a trend. UPS and FedEx do it, is they have some holiday surge pricing where on the parcels they're adding a surcharge because they're saying they're so busy. Last year the post office didn't do it. I would expect them to do it this year with priority mail and express mail and ground advantage, but we're not sure about that. But I would expect that would be the only chance of another rate increase this year. And then other than that, we're definitely going to have one in January. You can depend on that.
All right. Another question is, what area is most important for saving money when it comes to this rate increase?
With what we've seen in the rates for flats and what we've seen in the rates for heavier weight items, I think weight is going to be your most important differentiator. So look at the items that you're sending out that are heavier. Can we duplex print? Can we convert things from flats to letters? Can we automate things through pre-sort services that we're getting out, to get some of the extra discounts that we talked about on this? I think with the increase in weight that the post office is clearly putting on us, I think that's going to be the most important area to focus on.
Okay, it looks like we have another question. Our vendor rep keeps telling us that the equipment needed to be replaced by June 30th, but you're saying we have until the end of the year. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So it's from the get-go, it's always been like, even if you looked at the regulations online from the Postal Service, it's always been June 30th is the cutoff, is the deadline for the mandate. They have a grace period through the end of 2024. So that is not a new thing. That's not like the post office just gave an extension. That's been in place for the entire, at least the last 2 years that this change has been announced. So there's something in the Federal Register that documents that. If you get any pushback from your sales rep trying to push you to buy something quicker, it's not the requirement. You should feel comfortable at least until November that there should be no problems using your equipment. Like I said, though, some of the meter vendors, like starting in like the beginning of October, are going to make some changes that make it difficult. One of the vendors is saying you can't fill your meter you have to do your last refill in September. But you could easily load that meter for, $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever you need, and have it last out through, at least through the beginning of December.
Okay, it looks like we have another question. Will the January 2025 increase be more moderate since it's only impacted by CPI increase?
Um, it's possible. The last increase that we had in January of this year was a much more mild increase. I think it was only 3 or 4% overall. So that certainly could be. But the Postmaster General is, if you can, we heard when the National Postal Forum, he wants to raise rates as fast as he can. He is not into losing money, and services that are not covering their costs, he wants to make sure that their rate increases are at the highest level. So I mean, I don't know what to tell you to expect, but I would not expect him to start reducing the increases that he's doing overall. Like these 10% a year is, I think, the new norm.
Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. Please fill out the survey that will appear at the conclusion of the webinar, and be sure to check out our social media pages to find helpful information from us on a more frequent basis. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.